This is Jean Moore with More Than Sports. I am here with a very special guest who was a former punt returner for the Oregon Ducks football team and is current director of gospel choirs and ensembles at the University of Oregon. So, Andiel Brown, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Me too. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm learning all sorts of stuff, so this is good. So you graduated from Cleveland High School up in Portland.
Correct.
So is that where you grew up, was Portland?
For the most part, yeah. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but moved up to Portland when I was young, and just a lot of things with that. But foster care brought me up to Oregon, and my mother moved up to Portland to be closer to myself and my siblings. And then when she regained custody, she decided to stay in Oregon, not go back to LA.
Okay. So how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 brothers and 4 sisters.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you come from a very big family.
I come from a pretty big family, but it's small in comparison to my mom and dad.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad has 10 siblings. My mom has, I believe she has 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So very big family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit then, about your childhood. What was that like? It sounds like it may have been
depends on the
challenging.
Huh? It depends on which part of my childhood. So I'd say birth to 4 was challenging. So I was raised up in a church organization in LA. That's where I was born, and it's almost kind of like a commune, and it was very successful. It was called Ecclesia Church, right? But then they changed it to Ecclesia Athletic Association. What they started doing was taking all the kids in the church and training them for athletics. And it was very successful. So just about everybody that came out of there ended up having just this amazing athletic ability because from a young age we were trained, right? And in that training, abuse started happening, right? Oh. And so because of the abuse, it got very bad, and a lot of the children were seized from the custody of the parents and the organization and placed in foster care. And that's what happened to me. And I got placed in foster care in Oregon because at the time of the seizure, myself and a number of other kids were in Oregon at one of the properties the church owned, which was in Sandy, Oregon. Okay. And so I think federal law says that you can't transport minors across state lines. And so we stayed in Oregon for foster care. They wouldn't let us go back to our parents. And so that was from 1 to 4.
Wow.
Yes. And then 4 to 7 was the foster care era. And that was another beast because the foster care was in Salem. And at the time, there were no Black people in Salem.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's not like it was. Salem's much more diverse now. There's a strong Mexican community there. It's much more diverse. Back then was not the case. In 3 years, I saw one other Black person.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Yes. And I don't think I saw any. Oh, I saw 2 Mexican people, and it was at church.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's in 3 years. And then coming out of there, my mother regained custody, and we moved to Portland and stayed in Portland. So how was my childhood? It depends on which era.
Right, exactly. You've been through a lot.
I got a little bit of a story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what for me, that's why I love doing this, because I love to hear where people were, how they grew up. I don't love hearing, obviously, the bad parts of it, but where they're at now, like how they overcame that. And I think that's just, a huge testimony and, inspiration to others. So that's why, it's amazing to see people that are super successful from bad situations. So when did you start playing football?
7th grade. I started
Okay.
playing in 7th grade, Pop Warner. And I was at, where was I? Selwood Middle School in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And so we played it was the Cleveland High School feeder team. It was called the Warriors. Yeah. And so that's where I started playing. Before that, I would play in the streets, in the neighborhood. We just play we play like 500. Somebody throws a ball and calls a number 300. Whoever catches it gets the points, right? And so that's how I learned how to catch. That's how I learned that kind of competitiveness, how to kind of body people and go for the ball. And then we played something called, well, one of the names was British Bulldog. I don't know why they call it that, but the goal is somebody gets the ball. Mm-hmm. And they start on one end of the field or the street or whatever, and they try to get past everybody else who's trying to tackle them. So if you get past everybody else to the other side, you win. Mm-hmm. But it's almost impossible when everybody's out to tackle you. But I got good at it because you don't want to get tackled on the concrete.
Right, exactly.
So I got good at not getting tackled, being very shifty, very elusive, very, working on the agility and working on not getting hit hard. If I go down, I'm not going down hard. Right? So that's kind of what started me on the path. And I was like, hey, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty elusive. And then 7th grade, actually, first time put on pads. And it translated very well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you went on to play in high school.
I played in high school. And the reason I even started playing is because my brother, who's 6 years older than me, he was my hero, my role model. And he loved football. So I wanted to do all things he was doing. I wanted to be him.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to be him and Michael Jackson. So my brother was a dancer. I became a dancer. My brother sings. I'm going to sing. My brother plays sports. I'm going to play sports. He loved football. All of a sudden I love football. Because before him, I was a soccer guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then he was like, I love football. And he introduced me to this world. And I said, oh, okay, I guess it's pretty cool. And then I had success in it. And then it became very cool.
Yeah. So talk to me about how you ended up at the University of Oregon, because you actually were a walk-on.
Yes.
So
here's what happened.
How did that all happen?
So my junior year was my breakout year in high school. I started, I averaged 9.3 yards a carry that year.
Wow.
And so I started getting a lot of attention. And I knew nothing about college. Prior to that, I didn't even consider going to college. It's not something we talked about in my household.
Right.
So it's just like, hey, you graduate and then what? We don't know. We literally never had that conversation. Junior year comes, I start, tearing it up because now I'm starting on varsity. Before I was swinging because there were seniors ahead of me.
Right.
Even though I was better than them. But now all of a sudden I'm getting letters from universities asking for my stats and everything. Like, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? I'm like, well, I'm not tall and I don't weigh a lot, but I'm fast. And so I started getting, press news coverage in the newspapers. Some of my games were on local news and very cool. Then senior year, more of the same. And I started getting more letters and whatnot. And I had a couple offers from Colorado, from UNLV, from Washington, and I think that's it as far as D1 schools.
Wow.
Nevada. I think that's the Wolfpack. And my thinking was, and USC sent me a letter.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, how did I end up at Oregon?
Yeah.
Well, I first of all was like, I'm going to USC for sure because I'm going back home, right?
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
back to LA. All my extended family lives there. Uh,
Mhm.
yada yada yada. No brainer. Why would I not? You know, about 3 months before signing day, they sent me another letter saying we no longer are in need of your services,
Oh
and
no.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How dare you? I didn't know the rules of the anything, but I knew whatever offer was initially given was rescinded,
Mhm.
and now I'm not going to USC. Now I hate USC, right? Um, so, but then I also was like, I'm a mama's boy, so if I'm leaving home, it's
Mhm.
going to be to USC.
Mhm.
Otherwise I want to stay close. I
Right.
wasn't going to go to Colorado because the head coach lied to me and said it's not cold there. I was like, okay, if you're gonna lie to me, nah, pass.
Yeah.
I knew if I went to UNLV, it's on the strip. I'm not getting anything done. I'm gonna be trash
Mhm.
as a
Yep.
kid, right? As an individual. Washington, I had no desire to
Mhm.
be in Seattle. I knew nothing about it, right?
Mhm.
Um, Oregon State didn't give me any offers.
Hmm.
Um, Oregon recruited me. They came to who was it? Coach Don Pelham came to a couple of my games.
Uh-huh.
Really cool guy. So,
Yep.
yeah, I might consider Oregon. But then I actually took a trip to Willamette University, and I
Mhm.
loved it. It's a
Mhm.
small college, had kind of like a hometown feel. Everybody knew everybody. You don't
Mhm.
get lost in the shuffle. And even though it was Division III, they had won 2 national championships.
Oh wow.
So, right. So you're gonna be found no matter
Mhm.
what if you ball.
Mhm.
I know some Division II players who were in the first round drafts.
Mhm.
So it's like if you ball out, it doesn't matter where you are, you're gonna get looks. So I said I'm gonna go to Willamette because it's like very close to an Ivy League as far as Oregon is concerned. Great
Mhm.
education, great music program, great football program, and I loved the campus. I loved the environment. People were really cool. So I told them that's where I'm going. That's where I committed. However, um, they had a mishap with my transcripts. And about a month before training camp, they told me, hey, we don't know what happened, but we had a mishap with your transcripts. So you can't register for fall. You would have to register in the winter, which means I would have to gray shirt
Mhm.
um, on the football team.
Mhm.
Why? What is this? So I
Right.
thought in my mind, it's like if you really wanted me to be there and play football there, you would not have transcripts. You've
Right.
not done that. Like, no, I'm not about to do that. And I had this kind of mindset, like it's a D3. How dare you? Right. Um, again, I didn't know anything about anything. So then I called up Don Pelham and I said, listen, I'm coming to Oregon. And he said, that's great to hear, but since we didn't hear from you before and we know you committed to Willamette, we gave up all of our scholarships. We have none left. It was like 3 weeks before fall camp started.
Oh wow.
So it's like we have no scholarships left. So you can come. We definitely have a spot for you on the roster. We know what you can do. So you're not going to have to try out,
Mhm.
but you're going to have to be what we call a preferred walk-on, which
Mhm.
means preferred because we know what you can do. You don't have to try out, but you're still a walk-on, meaning you don't have a scholarship.
Mhm.
And you're going to have to earn your scholarship.
Right.
I said, okay, well, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
Mhm.
Because I was very confident in my skills, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, Oregon it is. So 3 weeks later, I was in Eugene.
Wow. Well, and so coming in as a walk-on,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you did kind of have to prove yourself to earn a scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
um, how did that impact your work ethic, on the field and really off the field as well with academics?
Well, funny you should say that. On the field, I knew I was just as good as anybody out there.
Mhm.
In a lot of cases, I felt that I was better.
Mhm.
So but they didn't treat me like that. It's a very interesting thing how the system, and this is any school, they treat the walk-ons different than they do the scholarship players. You know, the people, give preferential treatment to those who are on scholarship. And they're trying to change that now with a lot of, lawsuits with the NACP. NACU. I forgot. Anyway, it's this organization that advocates for student athletes. And they're the ones that kind of got the NIL thing going on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but back then that wasn't the case, and people were treated different. And so for me, I was like, how am I not getting the same kind of treatment as far as the gear, first dibs on this and that? They're treating their superstars a certain way, and then the non-superstars a certain way, and then the walk-ons are like peon, And
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm like, oh, interesting. Well, I'm going to show them with my play. And to the point where most of the people on the team didn't know I was a walk-on, because I was just day in, day out, busting tails and busting their tails, right? And it wasn't until the end of the first season where it was very clear in one of the meetings who's a scholarship player and who's not. Everybody's like, what? You're not on scholarship? People were surprised.
Right.
Because, the talent was clear. The work ethic was clear. I felt like I needed to do more. I had to prove that I was just as good as everybody out there. Right. So I was the first person on the field. I was the last person to leave. When we're doing conditioning, I'm running. I'm one of the top 3 finishing in our lines. And I got guests here. No, I'm not gonna. So yeah, people would know that I'm that guy. I'm going to run hard. I'm going to be in the top finishing. And that apparently that wasn't what a lot of walk-ons were doing. But yeah, so the work ethic was there. It pushed me for sure.
Right.
But the mentality, because I was on the football team and I did get all the gear and I did go to the home games and I suited up for one of them or a couple of them, even though I wasn't playing. I kind of got in my head that, yes, I am on this team. And my first year, my first term, academically was terrible. Horrible. And that's rare for me because high school, I had a good GPA, and I was good with my studies. So I had, I think, a 1.79
oh my God.
first term. And Coach Don Pelham called me in and he said, listen, this is not why I brought you on the team. You're better than this. And I felt bad. Basically, I was doing what everybody else was doing. I saw on the team, like they weren't going to class and they were big time. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. Then I was like, hey, I have a 1.7? Yeah, that's not acceptable. He said, I'm going to tell your mom and dad.
That'll do it.
I graduated on the dean's list, on the national dean's list. It never happened again. So academically, I turned it around after that first term, never had an issue again. The work ethic was there from the beginning, athletically. And yeah, so it was, I definitely felt like I had something to prove.
And did you ultimately get a scholarship?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can only deny talent so long. I definitely felt like I should have got more playing time. But it was very much there are politics,
Right. Oh, absolutely.
There are politics everywhere. Here's what happened to me though. I got playing time, but I didn't get nearly as much as I wanted to because when I was a freshman and sophomore, I had seniors ahead of me, and the guy who was ahead of me my sophomore year was Terrence Whitehead. He's one of the top 10 running backs of all time.
Yeah.
Right. And then what happened after that, is the following year, they recruited Jonathan Stewart. Tough deal, you know? And Jonathan was he's a freak of nature, he's a
Yes.
specimen. So
Yeah.
we ran the exact same 40 time, right? But we had the same body fat percentage. We were both 4.3 body fat percentage.
Wow.
But he was 30 pounds heavier than me,
Mm.
which means that was all muscle.
Uh-huh.
30 pounds of muscle heavier, and he ran the same 40 time.
Wow.
Not fair. That's not fair. When I
What
saw
was the 40 time?
4.3.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 4.46. 446. And and you see somebody with that kind of girth moving like that, it's not fair.
Yeah.
So I knew when I saw him in our first full pads practice, the way he stiff-armed lineman who was like 360 pounds, he stiff-armed him here and then to the ground, stepped over him and ran for a touchdown. I said, I'm never going to be starting at running back at the University of Oregon. So I literally considered transferring when I saw that.
Right.
But here's how this Pac-10 at the time was stacked. Marshawn Lynch was at Cal. Maurice Jones-Drew was at UCLA. Steven Jackson was at Oregon State. Toby Gerhardt was at Stanford. Lindell White and Reggie Bush was at USC. I wasn't going anywhere to start in the Pac-10, right? Yeah. I could have gone to Washington and fought for that. I could have gone to Arizona State. I could have gone to Arizona. I think I don't know if there were too big of people there, but yeah, it seemed to me I would have to leave the Pac-12 or Pac-10 to get it. And it just didn't seem like it wasn't good. So let me stay here and stick it out and do what I can do. And I think it was a good decision. Now, the reason I found that USC rescinded my offer is because they signed Reggie Bush.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And when I found that out in 2005, they came here and he got off the way he did. I was like, they made the right decision. Yeah. I wasn't mad at SC anymore because for 2 years, I was a hater. I hated them. How dare you take away my opportunity to go back home?
Right.
And I saw who they brought in. I was like, he's not even a hometown guy. He's not from LA. I'm from LA. I'm from Watts. He's from San Diego. How dare you? But then I saw him play. I was like,
that's why.
You made the right decision, So
that's funny. So we've kind of probably touched on this, but what's one thing that you've had to overcome in your life, and what did it teach you?
One thing?
Oh, right. I know.
Well, let's see. Well, I'll give you a number of them because they all taught me kind of the same thing. Foster care. Overcoming that. Being in foster care system is terrible. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's a terrible system. Being in poverty as a family is rough. Being in a position where people don't respect what you can do. Let's say as a walk-on, right? And then being in a position where you have your 1.79 GPA. All those things taught me a few different things, but they all also taught me one thing, which is if you persevere, you can overcome. Right? You persevere and you do what you know you can do, what you need to focus on, because there's some things that are out of your hands. But the things that you can control, if you do them diligently, you will come through and you will come through stronger.
Right.
For me, without that understanding, I'd be a different person. Because it worked through every time. It worked. I believed that I was going to be back with my mother at some point and get out of foster care. So I kept a positive attitude. And I think keeping a positive attitude helped me throughout life.
Right.
A lot of people are jaded after foster care, even when they come out. Being in poverty is a rough thing. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but if you keep a positive mindset, and things change, you get to have a positive mindset now with a perspective of your appreciation, because you know what you've been through. You know what's on, so you appreciate things.
Right.
If being a walk-on and nobody appreciates your gifts and your skills, but you know that you can focus on what you can do, you go in and day out and you bust your tail and you impress people, you have footage of you doing well day in and day out. Practice footage when you watch film. Who did that? Oh, that's Andiel. Oh, okay. They say your name in a good way every day.
Right.
It's going to turn around. Eventually, they have to recognize you. They have to give you a shot on the field. And when you do that, everything you've been practicing is second nature. So now you do it in a real game. Plays out. When you have a history, again, of academics, I did well in high school after my freshman year in high school. And then you now are in a low GPA. What I needed to do, what I could control. Go to class, turn in your assignments.
Do the work.
Do the work. And if you need help, ask for it. That thing turned around. You know, I think I graduated with a 3.57. It's either 3.57 or 3.75, which is not bad.
Right.
After a 1.73.
And especially being a student athlete as well, because that's not easy.
Yeah. Oh, especially, I respect those who are like dual sport athletes. Yeah. Oh, man.
So you stayed in Eugene after you graduated, and now you direct the gospel choir at the University of Oregon. Yes. When did your love of music start? I know you kind of touched on that, with your brother, but when for you did your love of music start?
I loved music since I was born. Before I could talk, I was singing. I just loved it. Before I could walk, I was dancing, bouncing around, showing that, hey, this kid's got rhythm. Also, I come from a musical family. The best singer I've ever heard live is my sister.
Oh, wow.
The only woman who's ever made me cry from hearing her voice is my mother. Yeah, my dad, oddly enough, was in kind of a boy band in the 70s. Like the Jackson 5. They were called the Shades of Tomorrow. They all had afros out there. My other sister is a songwriter, plays guitar. Again, my brother is probably one of the best producers I've ever heard, and he sings and he dances. So I come from a musical family. And, we used to sing when we were kids. We used to sing together on the porch and harmonize. And then my mom was like, oh, y'all are good. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make you do that to keep y'all out of trouble. And then we ended up singing in church. And, so I was raised up singing. But Michael Jackson was my guy, I loved Michael Jackson. So from as long as I can remember, I can't remember not being a fan of Michael Jackson music and dancing and singing to it. So it's been all my life.
Now, here's a question, because you kind of, you talked about this, about being raised kind of in a commune type of a situation. Sounds kind of like maybe a religious cult-ish, if that's okay to say.
It's the truth. Definitely turned into that.
So you are now, the director of the gospel choir. So I guess, first of all, how did that impact your view on religion growing up that way? The first, kind of formidable years of your life, to get to where you are now with your faith, and how has your faith really impacted you throughout your life?
Well, that's experience, fortunate for me, by the grace of God, it didn't negatively impact my faith. I was very young in that experience. So it was 1 to 4. When I was 4, we were taken out of that experience. And so formative years, but it didn't correlate in my mind that this is synonymous with faith.
Right.
It was just, this is life. So it didn't hinder my development in my faith. I really seriously got involved in faith when my mother got back, regained custody, because it was like, yeah, we know things. We know, from living in that space, we were forced to memorize scripture. I had the entire first chapter of Romans memorized at 4 years old, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
And yeah, so we knew scripture, but the faith wasn't our own yet. This was what was told for us to do, and it was part of life and discipline. But then when my mother regained custody, and then big time, when my father came back, he was an ordained minister. And then when he rejoined the family.
Oh, you're cutting out.
Oh, I'm cutting out?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait. Okay, you're back.
Am I back?
You're back.
So it wasn't until when my father came back and rejoined the family, because him and my mother had divorced during this time.
Oh, okay.
Foster care and all that. And then when I was 12, they remarried each other. And so he comes back to the family, and he's an ordained minister at this time. And so he made it to where he made sure that we were very much taking the faith personally and made it our own, right? No longer is it you're just doing this because we told you to. It's like you got to have this for yourself. And so you got to be real about it. And that was more of my development, even though I fought it. I'm not gonna lie. As kids do, because you want to be normal. You want to be normal. You want to be like everybody else. You want to be like the cool kids, and they're not talking about God. They're not doing godly things. They're out at parties and drinking and smoking, and it seems like a great time. You want to be like them. So, but all of that was formative. It seemed like we were going in one ear and out the other, but it stuck with me to where when I was finally on my own in college, it was a shock. And so I had to lean on what I had learned at home as far as my faith to get me through it. So it was all formative, and then it was put to task and put to use when I got to college. Because
when you had to make those tough decisions and really stand on what you believe. And
yes, and that's difficult on a team like that, where there's a lot that happens. There's a lot of temptation at these parties. Hey, somebody's going to give you free alcohol because you play on the football team. Somebody's going to give you free weed,
right,
because you play on the football team. And there's girls everywhere. You don't even have to be attractive. You just got to play on the football team. Serious. It's a sad truth. So it's like, okay, what kind of man do you want to be?
Right.
And that was tough, because I want to be a man of virtue. I want to be a man of substance. I want to be a man that is pleasing to God. I also want to fit in.
Right.
That juxtaposition, it was difficult to navigate, and it was tearing me apart inside, because I never fit in. I never fit in completely anywhere. In high school, I was around a bunch of different people, the thespians, the jocks. I was in choir. I was a music nerd, right? I would hang out with the skaters and the goth people. I would hang around everybody. But I never felt like I fit in with anybody. I mean, I could go into those circles and feel great and interact and be just fine, enjoy myself, make sure they're enjoying themselves.
Right.
So it felt different. I always felt set apart, didn't know why, and I hated it. And then I definitely felt the same on the football team. I was different, and I used to get made fun of for being different. I used to get teased a lot. Because I'm a peculiar individual, and I know that. I'm in the locker room dancing and singing. I'm in the weight room in between sets. They got Commodores on. I'm dancing in between sets, singing, right? People looking at me like I'm weird. I do a, clean and jerk, put it down, and I do a Michael Jackson spin. That's me. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you bring attention to yourself, you open yourself to potential ridicule. And that was me. And but I'm going to be me regardless. And part of me also was the faith.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that was open me up to teasing and ridicule. But it wasn't until my junior year when I got on the field and I started doing well that it was like, oh, he's kind of cool, I guess. And then now everything that I've done, I've been consistent this whole time. They didn't see me out at parties drinking and smoking. Me at parties, with a bunch of different girls every night. I was consistent. I was to myself, but I was always personable. But then I was also always talking about God too. And so now that I'm a player, I'm a starter at Punt, people are coming to me and asking me questions about God. So all of a sudden, also my junior year is when the former guy who was the spiritual leader of the team, he graduated and he left. And all of a sudden, now I'm the guy. People come to me with questions and asking me to pray for them. And I lead the team prayer before games. And so I was like, I see all this. I see the pattern, how it happened. Stay true to myself and stay true to what I believe in.
Right.
And it made a way for me later. All of a sudden, now I'm a captain on the team. Coach Radcliffe made me a captain because he saw what was happening. He's like, no, you're a veteran. You're a captain. I need you to be that. And I had to step up.
That's amazing though, because I think that's so much of it, when you live your life according to how God wants you to live it, and people do see that, and it's a testimony to them. And when you are consistent and that's kind of how people get saved, that's how people, they look to you for that advice and and that example. So that's awesome. That's a huge testimony, to you and your faithfulness. So that's awesome. So what would you say your biggest accomplishment in life up to this point
in life
is? Yes.
That's a tough question. In life, I would say, it's threefold. One, staying true to myself no matter what. I'm the person I was in high school. I'm just stronger in certain areas. I'm still a happy-go-lucky guy. I'm still all about my faith. I'm still all about people. And I still care about helping folks. So I've been that guy since high school to today. So is that, I think that's a huge compliment. Two, is I'm an avid learner, and I take what I learn. I never stop learning. I take what I learn and I apply it, and it's definitely enriched my life. And three, I appreciate life, everything that I've had. I appreciate, and I say that's an accomplishment because sometimes you can lose a mindset, and you can get complacent. You can change, change a lot, especially when success starts to happen. I've never taken any of these things for granted because I've been homeless before. Oddly enough, the summer from between my freshman and sophomore year, I was homeless.
Wow.
There was one time I spent the night in the locker room.
Oh my goodness.
Man, nobody knew that. Nobody knew that.
Huh.
So everything that I have now, everything that I'm appreciative of it, and I'm not attached to the material things. I always tell people, like, if I go home today and I find that all my couch is gone, my TV's gone, my what is it, the Nintendo Switch is gone, all that's gone, all my clothes are gone. I'd be like, you know what? It was nice while it lasted. You know, I'm grateful that I had it. Because I'm still alive.
Right.
And I'm appreciative of everything. And I also know that life is full of seasons.
Mm-hmm.
If I go through a time of hardship, it's only for the season.
Right.
If I go through a time of extreme prosperity, it's a season.
Mm-hmm.
I need to experience and enjoy every part of life, every aspect of it. Peace be the journey, as they say. Every part of the journey, I'm going to fully enjoy it and embrace it.
Because it can be taken away. I mean, I'm sure, we have a mutual friend that just passed away unexpectedly, and we know how quick it can be taken. He had just posted 4 days ago on his Facebook that he was feeling great, and hoping that everybody else was having a good day, and and then now he's gone. So I think that that's always something that you can take away from that, and hardships that you do endure, is that we're here. I wake up every morning and I'm, even if I'm struggling, it's still, thank you, God, that I'm awake.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a great mindset to have.
Absolutely. Same thing. I wake up literally every morning. The first words out of my mouth is, thank you, Father.
Yep.
First thing I say, because I want to make sure that I start my mind and my day the right way.
Right.
And, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Let me use it in a way that will build me up and set the tone for the atmosphere every morning. That's the first thing out of my mouth. I make sure of that.
Yeah, it's important. It's super important. Okay, so what's a little known fact about you?
Little known. It's a good question. I'm kind of open book with my life. That's an excellent. Little known fact. Currently, it's going to be a well-known fact, I guess, that I am writing a book series on relationships.
Okay, well then let's get into that, because I was going to wait till the end for that. But behind you is a poster, and it's Professor Brown channel. So talk to me a little bit about that, and how does that tie into your book series?
Well, so the Professor Brown channel is it's a podcast, and it's also going to be a kind of a video podcast on YouTube as well, where we talk about all things relationships, and the purpose of it is to get the best outcomes out of the relationships that you can. And it's not just romantic, it's all relationships. It's interpersonal, intrapersonal, work relationships, family, friends, and romantic. And all the aspects that go in. Romantic in itself is a huge topic, because there's different kinds of romantic relationships. So we start by asking, what is it that you want for yourself? And if you don't know what you want, then let's take it even further back. Who are you? If you don't know, we'll start right there. How do I identify who I am? How do I solidify my identity? How do I cultivate it? And then once you have your identity cultivated, then you can say, this person who I am, this is what I want for that person. Right? And then from there, you can then set your parameters and how to better achieve those outcomes for that person who you just identified. Right? So you set your boundaries, and if anybody presses them, then you have protocols in place, right? And then you decide, is this somebody I want to interact with? Yes, no. You get to make decisions based on protocols that you set for yourself and for who you are and what you want for yourself. And then you get to play it out, see it play out with everything that you do. Every person. So yeah, the book series then talks about basically what the podcast is going to talk about, everything in the book series, right? The book series is One, know who you are and what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another one is the friendships we need and don't need. Um, how to identify a good partner.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, are you ready for sex?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, oh man, I could tell you in college, I from experience, you got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who go into a college scene and they don't know what to expect. The next thing you know, they have terrible experiences,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they
Mm-hmm.
weren't ready.
Yeah.
But peer pressure is a
Yeah.
bad boy, you know.
Yeah.
And then now, as a professor, seeing
Mhm.
a lot of, I overhear so much in my
Well,
classes,
I bet.
and these students are having just terrible experiences because
Mm-hmm.
they can't talk about these things. So now, are you ready for sex? Because if you can't talk about sex, you're certainly not ready for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people
Mm-hmm.
are having conversations saying, I couldn't do XYZ because I was afraid to say it.
Right. Mhm.
You shouldn't be having it then.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
so we're talking about that. Another one is oh, there's 11 books in this. I could go on and on, but yeah. So the podcast
Mhm.
is basically talking about the topics in the books.
Okay. And when is that going to be? When are you going to start that?
This spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever need a female
Oh
on your
yeah.
show, count
Listen,
me in.
I got you. I definitely want to hear your perspective.
I have a lot of experience. So.
Yes, and I need to hear all about it. I need to hear
Uh-huh.
about it. I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom we can get from it.
Let's hope so. Because there's been some difficult situations, but okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it on your show.
Okay. Love it.
So, what's the biggest piece of advice that you've been given, and what advice would you give others, just in general?
Best piece of advice I've been given. Um, nobody's ever said it this way,
Mm-hmm.
but I've had a lot of people tell me in multiple different ways that kind of basically culminates in this. Know who you are and act accordingly,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll take it from three main people who said it in different ways, but it basically means the same thing. Coach Radcliffe,
Mm-hmm.
who was the strength and conditioning coach for the football team when I was there. Now I believe he does track and basketball and other things, but he made us write out our goals in life, and he had made us write it out so we know what we want,
Mm-hmm.
who we want to be, and it was very important to him. And he didn't just tell us to do it; he did it himself, and he would always go around with his goals in his wallet.
Oh, wow.
And be like, Coach Brad, you got your goals on you today? Yes, I do. And he'd take it out and flash it like a card. And to this day, I still carry my goals that I made in 2005 around me every day.
Wow.
Matter of fact, hold on. Let me get there. Where are my wallets? Let me show you this. It's important.
Yes, I want to hear it.
Okay, so I keep my goals in my wallet
Mm-hmm.
because that's what he did.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And my goals, this was back in 2005. I wrote this. He wrote it on a sheet, and we wrote. He gave us a piece of paper, and they have prompts, and we fill in the prompts. And then he takes it, shrinks it down, laminates it, and gives it back to us.
That's cool.
I've had this since 2005. Number one, my goals are to be the best Christian, athlete, entertainer, and role model to all who come to me in life. Number two, be a great example of what a positive attitude, hard work, persistence, and a strong faith and trust in Jesus Christ can achieve every day in life. Number three, to always remember that my faith and obedience to Jesus is my first and foremost objective in life. and all the other most important aspects of a worthwhile life. And then the quote that best describes me and my life at this point is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then another one is, I will bless the Lord at all times, and his praises shall continually be in my mouth. And I wrote this before I knew I was going to be the gospel choir director, right?
Wow.
2005. I didn't become the choir director for 3 years later.
That's amazing.
So know who you are
Mm-hmm.
and act upon it. Act as such. My dad also instilled that in me. He never said those words, but he's like, you got to be solid in who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You got to, because people are going to press you and try to get you to change, try to get you to compromise. You got to stand strong in your faith. Every day he would say that. He would prepare me.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brother has, he's a motivational speaker. He frames it this way, and he has a trademark on his clothing line that says, own who you are. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so 3 very influential people basically said the same thing.
Right.
Right? And I think that's some of the best advice I've ever been given.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say to young people, absolutely that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would follow it up with, make sure you network. Learn the skill of networking, and never take anybody you meet for granted, because you might want to leverage a relationship later in life.
Mm-hmm.
I met some people in 2003 that I'm working with today.
Mm-hmm.
So 21 years of knowing this person, and then just this year we decided to work together.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. When.
Never know.
So yeah.
All right. Well, that is all the questions I have for you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So as of January 16th, I am, in addition to being the gospel choir director at U of O, I am now also the managing director for the Eugene Springfield NAACP.
Oh, nice.
So
that's cool.
So very busy.
Well, a lot.
Yeah. But we're doing good work, and we're trying to change the organization to really be impactful in the community as it was historically, and really just bring awareness to many different topics, and bring resources to the community, and really advance the work of the organization. So really excited for the future, really excited. I never thought I'd be 10 toes down in Eugene.
But here you are. Knee deep in the community.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. And, I definitely will be following the progress on it and what you guys are all doing there. And I think that's great. So, Andiel, thank you again so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure.
To be on More Than Sports. I am so excited. I would love to be on your podcast. So I think that networking at its finest right here. So I think that's great.
I'm looking forward to having you.
Thank you. So stay on after I end.
Okay.
And we'll talk some more. So this is Jean Amore with More Than Sports. Thank you so much for watching.